I never thought I'd be that person who tried to frame their husband for cheating. But here I am, living with the consequences of trying to screw over probably the most honest guy I've ever met. I'm Courtney, 28, and this is how I managed to completely destroy my life trying to escape it. 3 years ago, I was a fresh-faced assistant manager at Applebee's when I met Harry. He wasn't my usual type. No designer clothes or fancy car, just a regular guy in work boots who owned a medical equipment repair business. But something about his quiet confidence got to me. He didn't try to impress me like other guys. He just was who he was, a guy who built his business from scratch and now made solid 6 figures keeping hospital equipment running. The early days were great. We both worked crazy hours, but somehow made it work. Me dealing with the endless drama of restaurant management, him rushing off to fix million-dollar machines at hospitals. We'd meet up late at night, exhausted but happy. I loved that we were equals, both grinding, both building something. I used to brag about how we weren't like those couples where the wife just lived off her husband's money. God, I was so full of it back then. I'd literally roll my eyes at women who quit their jobs after marriage. I could never just sit at home all day, I'd say, acting all superior. Harry would get this little smirk when I'd go off about independent women and equal partnerships. Should have realized he was memorizing every word. Marriage changed things, but not how I secretly hoped. Even with his business growing, we kept splitting everything 50-50. Our modest 3-bedroom house, utilities, groceries, everything down the middle. Which was fine, except, was it? He was making 3 times what I made, but I was still dragging myself through 50-hour weeks, managing hangry customers and no-show staff. The thing about managing a restaurant is it never stops. Someone always calls out sick. There's always an angry customer. The schedule is always a mess. Meanwhile, Harry's business kept growing, but his emergency repair calls meant our schedules barely overlapped. Some weeks we only saw each other passed out on the couch. My sister Bree started pointing things out, like how Harry never suggested I quit, even though he could easily support us. How he let me work myself to death while he had the means to help. "He's using your pride against you," she'd say. And yeah, maybe I talked a big game about being an independent woman, but wasn't a good husband supposed to at least offer to take care of his wife? I started noticing things. How Harry never complained about our separate schedules. How he'd just nod when I'd rant about work, like he was waiting for something. The rare times I'd hint about maybe cutting back hours, he'd say stuff like, "But you've always been so passionate about your career." Or, "I remember how you felt about women who don't work." Always with that knowing look, like he was calling my bluff. Looking back, I think he knew from the start I wasn't being honest, with him or myself. All that talk about loving the grind, never wanting to depend on a man. He saw right through it. Saw that deep down, I was hoping marriage would be my escape ticket from restaurant life. But instead of calling me out, he just let me trap myself with my own words. That's the thing that really got to me. He didn't have to be mean or controlling, he just had to sit back and let my own big mouth build my prison. Every time I'd complained about lazy housewives, every time I'd bragged about being a real working woman, he was probably thinking, "Okay, if that's what you want." And now here I was, 28 years old, spending my Saturday nights breaking up fights between customers, while my husband was out making triple my salary fixing medical equipment. Something had to give. I just didn't realize that something would end up being my entire life. When my sister suggested the cheating setup, it seemed like the perfect solution. I was too proud to admit I'd been wrong about wanting to work forever. Too stubborn to straight up ask Harry for help. But a divorce where he was the bad guy? That felt like a way out that wouldn't make me look like a hypocrite. Spoiler alert, it made me look so much worse. The breaking point wasn't one big thing. It was all the little moments piling up. Like the night I got home at 1 a.m. after closing, completely drained, only to find Harry's side of the bed empty, another emergency repair call. Or, when I checked our joint account and saw his business brought in nearly $40,000 that month, while I was still stressing about covering my half of the bills with my $55,000 salary. My sister Bree became my sounding board. She'd gone through her own divorce last year and kept telling me how much happier she was. "You're not happy, Court. Anyone can see it," she'd say during our late-night phone calls. "And Harry? He's perfectly fine letting you run yourself into the ground." The more I vented to her, the more she'd point out things I hadn't even noticed. Like how Harry never actually supported my career beyond just letting me work. No suggestions for advancement, no help looking for better jobs, just that same patient smile when I'd complain about entitled customers or staff drama. "He's comfortable," Bree said. "You're killing yourself with this job, and he gets to look like the supportive husband just by doing nothing." She was right. I'd come home with my feet killing me, smelling like fryer oil, and he'd be calmly doing paperwork for his business. Sometimes he'd mention getting another service contract or hiring a new tech, and I'd feel this flash of, not exactly jealousy, more like betrayal. Like, how could he watch me struggle and not want to help? I finally brought it up one night, asked him why we were still splitting everything equally when he made so much more. His response? "I thought this was what you wanted. Equal partnership, both of us working. You were pretty clear about your feelings on wives who depend on their husbands." The way he said it, so reasonable, so calm, made me want to scream. He was using my own words against me. Every feminist rant, every judgmental comment about housewives, every time I'd bragged about my independence, he'd been banking all of it, waiting for this moment. "That was before," I said. "Before I was killing myself working while you're building something real." "You could build something too," he replied. "Or look for a better job, or go back to school. I'm not stopping you." That's when it really hit me. He wasn't going to save me from my choice to work. He was going to let me keep struggling, keep grinding, keep hating my life, all while technically being the perfect supportive husband. Because I'd told him that's what I wanted. Bree saw me crying after that conversation. That's when she first mentioned her friend who got a huge divorce settlement by proving her husband cheated. "You deserve something for these years," she said. "He's been basically using you as a roommate while his business grows. There are ways to make this right." I should have recognized the gleam in her eye. Should have remembered how her own divorce went down. But I was too tired, too angry, too trapped by my own big mouth. And my sister's suggestion started looking better and better. Looking back, I think Bree had been planning this longer than I realized. She started casually mentioning how her friend Sarah had caught her husband cheating through text messages. Then how another friend had hired a private investigator. Always these little stories about women who got what they deserved in their divorces. "The thing is," she told me over wine one night, "men like Harry are too smart to actually cheat. They just wear you down slowly until you're the one who looks crazy." She explained how her friend's husband had kept everything separate, made her work herself to death, all while building his business. Sound familiar? The more we talked, the more I saw the parallels. How Harry never pushed me to quit my job, but never really supported me either. How he let me exhaust myself while his business grew. It wasn't abuse. That would have been easier to fight. It was this subtle, patient manipulation, using my own pride against me. At least, that's how Bree helped me see it. "He's basically using you as a live-in roommate while he builds his empire," she said. "You deserve compensation for these years." She made it sound so reasonable. Take some evidence of cheating to a lawyer, get a good settlement, finally escape this endless grind. I still remember the night I agreed to her plan. It was after another missed dinner, me closing the restaurant, Harry on an emergency call. I was sitting in our empty house at 1 a.m., feet throbbing, smelling like kitchen grease, checking our bank account. His business had just landed another major hospital contract. Meanwhile, I'd spent my night dealing with a busboy who didn't show up and a customer who insisted their well-done steak was too dry. Bree laid it all out. We'd need evidence, texts, photos, witnesses. She knew people who could help set it up, make it look like Harry had been meeting someone during his service calls. "He's got so many emergency repairs at odd hours," she said. "It's the perfect cover story." The scary part was how easy it seemed. Get some compromising photos with timestamps matching his hospital visits, create some fake texts, find a few people willing to say they'd seen something, build a story about him, using his repair business to cover up meetings with another woman. The best part, Bree explained, is that it'll be his word against the evidence. And men like Harry, so careful with their images, they usually settle quick and quiet, rather than fight messy accusations. I knew it was wrong, knew it went against everything I claimed to stand for. But I was so tired of the constant restaurant drama, tired of splitting bills when he made 3 times what I did, tired of him using my feminist rants against me, mostly tired of feeling trapped by my own words. "You're not doing anything wrong," Bree assured me, "just evening the playing field. He's been manipulating you for years, with this whole supportive husband act. Time to play his game." The plan was set. All we needed was the right opportunity. And with Harry's unpredictable emergency repair schedule, that opportunity was bound to come soon. I wish I could go back to that moment, tell myself how spectacularly this was about to blow up in my face. Turns out, framing someone for cheating is a lot harder than my sister made it sound, especially when that someone is basically the most organized person on the planet. Every single one of our perfect opportunities crashed and burned because of Harry's stupid detailed record-keeping. First attempt. We tried to stage photos of Harry's truck at a local motel during what was supposed to be a late-night repair call. Except Harry's business tracking app showed his exact location at the hospital the entire time, plus security footage of him working on their MRI machine. Cool. Then we tried creating fake texts from a burner phone. Spent hours making them look realistic, getting the timestamps right. What we didn't know was Harry's repair business used some fancy scheduling software that documented every single client communication. The timestamps we chose? He was literally on recorded calls with hospital administrators. But the real disaster was the witness Bree found, a friend of a friend, who agreed to say she'd seen Harry getting cozy with someone at a coffee shop. We prepped her with all these details about Harry's schedule and habits. Then, during a meeting with my lawyer, she mixed up which hospital Harry supposedly visited her at. Turned out that hospital wasn't even one of his clients. She panicked and started changing details, making the whole story sound fake. I tried to save it, saying maybe I got the dates mixed up. But then Harry's lawyer pulled out this color-coded calendar of every repair call, client meeting, and hospital visit for the past year, with timestamps and GPS locations, and signed maintenance logs. The look on my lawyer's face, I knew we were screwed. But Bree kept pushing. "We just need better evidence," she'd say. "More witnesses, better photos." She was getting desperate, calling in favors, trying to find someone else willing to lie. That's when I started slipping up, telling different versions of the story to different people, forgetting which lies I'd told to whom. I'd say Harry met someone at one hospital, then accidentally mention a different location to someone else. People started noticing the inconsistencies. The final straw was when Bree convinced me to say I'd found suspicious texts on Harry's phone. We figured he was too practical to cause a scene by denying it. Wrong. Instead, he calmly handed over his phone to his lawyer, complete with documentation of every text he'd sent for the past year, all business-related, all logged through his company's system. I'll never forget sitting in that conference room, watching Harry's lawyer methodically dismantle every piece of our evidence. The staged photos, timestamps didn't match his documented locations. The fake texts, contradicted by his business records. The witness couldn't keep her story straight. And Harry just sat there, quiet and composed, letting his records speak for themselves. No angry denials, no dramatic confrontations. Just that same patient look he'd always had, like he'd been waiting for me to trip myself up. That's when Bree, my own sister, completely lost it. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. She'd been getting twitchy every time another part of our plan failed. Kept saying we needed to be more careful, while pushing me to try riskier setups. Classic Bree. Always ready to push until things got too real. The day it all exploded, I was at work, trying to handle the lunch rush, while texting Bree about our next move. She wasn't responding, which was weird since this whole thing had been her idea. Then my phone started blowing up. Turns out, Bree had gone to Harry's lawyer that morning and spilled everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. The staged photos, the fake texts, the coached witness. She even showed them our text messages planning it all. Her excuse? She was worried about potential legal consequences and wanted to clear her conscience, right? More like saving her own skin once she realized how badly we'd messed up. The next few days were a blur. Harry's lawyer sent everything to my lawyer, who dropped me immediately. Word spread through the hospital network Harry worked with, then through the restaurant industry. Apparently, medical equipment repair guys know a lot of people who own restaurants. Who knew? My boss called me into his office, super uncomfortable. Look, we've got clients who work with your husband's company. That was it. 6 years of restaurant management experience, worthless because nobody wants to hire someone who tried to frame their husband for cheating. The worst part wasn't losing my job. It wasn't even Bree's betrayal, though that stung like hell. It was sitting across from Harry in our final mediation session, watching him calmly present evidence of my scheme while I couldn't even keep my lies straight. No anger, no accusations, just methodically showing how I'd tried to destroy his reputation. "Why didn't you just tell me you were unhappy?" he asked during a break. "We could have talked about you finding a different job, or going back to school, anything besides this." I wanted to scream at him. Tell him it was his fault for letting me work so hard while he succeeded, for never offering to support me despite his income, for using my own proud words against me. But sitting there, watching him organize his paperwork with that same careful precision he used in his business, I realized something. He hadn't trapped me. I'd trapped myself. Every time I'd judged other women for not working, every time I'd bragged about being independent, every time I'd rolled my eyes at stay-at-home wives, I'd built my own cage, and instead of admitting I wanted out, I'd tried to blow everything up. That was 8 months ago. Now I'm living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, working as a server at a chain restaurant across town where nobody knows my story. My restaurant management experience means nothing. Word travels fast in this industry, and nobody's willing to risk hiring someone known for elaborate revenge schemes. Meanwhile, Harry's business is doing better than ever. Some fancy medical tech company decided to partner with him, expanding his repair service across 3 states. He bought out our house in the divorce settlement, which I watch climb in value on Zillow late at night when I can't sleep. Real estate prices in our area are soaring, probably because of all the new medical facilities being built. Facilities that probably have contracts with Harry's company. Bree tried to apologize last week. Sent this long text about how she was just looking out for me and never meant for things to go so far. I blocked her number. She's back with her husband now anyway. Turns out her own divorce stories weren't exactly honest either. Funny how that works. The thing that keeps me up at night isn't losing the house, or my career, or even my reputation. It's knowing that Harry saw through me from the very beginning. He knew I didn't really believe all that stuff about never wanting to depend on anyone. Knew I was secretly hoping marriage would be my escape from working. But instead of calling me out, he just waited. Let me prove what a hypocrite I was, all by myself. I saw him last month at the grocery store. He was with his new girlfriend, some medical equipment sales rep who actually understands what he does for a living. They were laughing about something, looking totally relaxed. He noticed me but just gave a polite nod, like I was any other person who used to be in his life. That's the worst part. He's not angry, not bitter. He's just moved on, building his business, living his life. While I'm here, serving endless plates of mozzarella sticks, still making half what I made as a manager, still splitting bills with a roommate because it's all I can afford, still watching my old proud words about being an independent woman come back to haunt me. Everyone says I should feel guilty about what I did. And I do, kind of. But mostly I'm angry. Angry at Bree for pushing me into this scheme. Angry at Harry for never just telling me to quit my job. Angry at myself for not just admitting what I really wanted instead of trying to frame an innocent man for cheating. But you know what? At least I'm not pretending anymore. No more lectures about independence. No more judging other women's choices. No more acting like I love the grind. These days I'm just trying to rebuild some kind of life from the mess I made. And if there's a lesson here, maybe it's this. Be careful what you say you want. Because sometimes people will believe you, And sometimes they'll just wait patiently while you destroy yourself trying to prove you meant it.